Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
Hi-dily ho, neglectorinos.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to Talkumentary. This is Talkumentary episode 3. My name's Jeff, and I'm here with my friends, Matt.
Hey.
Mr. Brice.
Yo, what's up?
What up, man? And unfortunately, we don't have our good friend Molly with us today. She was not feeling well, so she skipped out today. So Molly, when you listen to this, we miss you. We wish you were here, but we hope you feel better. But on a positive note, we have the always ready, always chatty, always fun to have around, Miss Katy VP. Hi, Katy.
Hi, Jeff. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me again.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
You are always welcome.
Thank you.
This week, what did we watch? We watched a 105-minute documentary called Good Night Oppy.
This is Delta Launch Control.
Go for launch.
3, 2, 1. Engine start and liftoff.
This was a film made in 2022. It tells the story of two twin Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, lovingly nicknamed Oppy, that were sent into space back in 2003 for a 90 souls journey. But that journey ended up lasting for 15 whole years, blowing everybody's minds and expectations out of the water.
Oh, it's alive!
This doc uses all kinds of archival footage along with recreations of the rover's treks over the Martian landscape and created a very high quality and entertaining documentary. I don't know about you all, but this was to me like watching a Pixar movie. This was incredible in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
The animations that came along with the story were just incredible. I mean, it
Yep.
helped tell the story of the entire journey.
Yep. Good Night Oppy was named the best documentary feature at the 2022 Critics' Choice Awards. And at the time of this recording, it hasn't even been on the docket for bigger award ceremonies. So potentially it's going to be up for more awards. It's at this point certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 89% tomato meter, and an audience score of 100, which is pretty awesome.
That's why I picked it.
It is. It's not because you love space.
Oh, yeah, I love space,
Oh,
too.
okay.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, true. Directed by Ron White, written by Helen Kearns and Ron. Oh my goodness! This was not directed by Ron White. This was directed by Ryan White. Sorry, Ryan. Written by Helen Kearns and Ryan White. Produced by Brandon Carroll, Justin Falvey, Daryl Frank, Matthew Goldberg, Jessica Hargrave, Stephen Neely, and Ryan White. This incredible documentary was narrated by the one and the only Angela Bassett.
Angela. We love you.
Angela. I think she's has an incredible narrating voice and should probably do more narrations, in my opinion.
It's liquid honey.
Yeah.
We love you,
And I
Angela.
also happen to know, little side note, she happens to be the celebrity crush of our very own King James. So, yeah, if you see, yeah, he was a big fan. She was the standout moment for watching the Black Panther movies. For
She
him,
gave birth to a king.
yeah, true.
She is a queen.
Very true.
She's on American Horror Story. She's done everything.
She's the best.
She is.
Production companies for this film were Film 45, Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg. So there's some of your production value credentials. Tripod Media, and those amazing recreations where it looked like the rover was actually on Mars. Those were done by Industrial Light and Magic, which is George Lucas, Star Wars fame. So that's why we have so much probably production money in this, as well as a really high quality film. It was distributed by Amazon Studios and streaming on Amazon Prime Video. All of those credentials will be in the show notes. Let's get into it. But first, Brice, if you haven't watched Good Night Oppy, which I hope you have, you need to pause what you're doing and go watch it. We do have someone in here that maybe didn't watch it, but she was a last minute addition to our show. So we'll give her a pass this time. Spoiler alert. Go watch it. Come back. Are you still there? All right, let's go.
I've watched it twice.
Oh, last week you told us that you always pass your homework off to someone else. And
we know what
you're
kind of
telling
person
us
you are.
This week
Yeah.
you're telling us you did your homework. So that's good.
Yeah.
Well done. Let's talk about why we decided to watch Good Night Oppy. Matt, you were our dealer this week. Tell us what interested you about Good Night Oppy. Remind us a little bit from last week what you mentioned and why we're doing this space exploration this week.
Yeah, last week I explained some things I liked about it, and I can't exactly remember what those were, but I can think of some new things to say. The space it's a mesmerizing thing, and the entire journey of these two rovers in space is just an incredible story, and all of the people that were involved over 1.5 decades. And it's an incredible thing to watch, the human race advance out into the cosmos.
Yeah. Had you seen this before you picked it for this?
I've never seen the documentary, but I've been following the journey of the rovers ever since they blasted off.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So all the way back in 2003, you were watching
all the way
it
back in 2003.
very
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
Brice, did you have predictions? I know that you admittedly said that this isn't really your area of interest, space travel and all that, which is funny because of what you do for a living. But
That is funny.
yeah. But what were your predictions? What did you think going into this?
I mean, I didn't really predict much or have much thought into it. I just knew that there was a rover called Oppy, which now I know stands for opportunity.
You're so smart.
And
Whoa.
it is on Mars.
It's still currently, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all.
You're so full of shit.
Okay, so I pictured that much, but I guess I didn't imagine all of the issues they would have once they got there. Or that they would run for 15 years rather than 90 days.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah. A lot of jobs were saved that way.
Yeah, I think
That's
you're
what
probably
we were really worried about.
right. Making sure those
jobs at NASA.
astronauts and everything else have a job when we send things up into space.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think it was, guys at the park who are way too into their like RC cars and
Right.
planes. It's just that on a much larger level.
Yeah, and a lot more financial backing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're obsessive for sure.
Yeah. I can understand that because being someone who's, whether it's just like toys like Legos and stuff or, building things for work or whatever it is, that takes a little piece of you. So when you see it getting acclaim or you see it doing well or something, I know that you get a lot of pride in that. So I kind of understand that. Katy, you haven't watched this thing all the way through, so this is a good opportunity for you to tell us, what do you think going into this? What do you think is this something you feel like you would have enjoyed? Or you will when you decide to watch it eventually, I'm sure?
I'm what you called an astronomy nerd.
Nice.
I've been obsessed with space since I was a child, since I realized there was big black nothingness for as far as you could possibly imagine that. Since my science teacher told me we did not know where space ended, we did not know if there was an end, my mind did not stop.
Yeah, in fact, I think they say it continues to get bigger.
Yes. It
What
is
in the world?
expanding, and it is expanding faster. And it's an incredible thing. So I'm a little bit familiar with Mars rovers. It wasn't something I was terribly interested in. I'm not interested in traveling somewhere nearby with things that are nearby. I'm more interested in things that are out of our reach, like black holes, where the universe will end and what's outside of our reach, which isn't maybe for everyone. So it was nice to learn a little bit about what we are trying to do within our lifetime, which is Mars, which is closest, which is accessible. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about our plans in the future.
Yep.
Since Oppy was accessible and successful, what their plans are in the next 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and baby steps, right? You gotta step to Mars before you can go onto Venus, and then so on and so on.
Took humanity
and so
a long time just to get those few robots on the surface of that planet.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's technology out there that can go a lot further. I've seen it in all kinds of sci-fi movies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What are they hiding from me?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, let's talk about Interstellar, the greatest space movie ever.
Yeah, it does.
There's a wormhole and a black hole, the two mega movie space moments that you could ever hope to have.
Is Matt Damon the wormhole or the black hole? Or Matthew McConaughey? Which one?
Matt Damon is the asshole.
Oh.
That is on a planet lying about whether he has organics available to start a new planet.
Spoiler
Matthew
alert.
McConaughey is heading to a wormhole behind Jupiter to go to Matt Damon's planet.
I think I need to watch that.
It is the best movie in the whole world, hands down. I'm serious.
That's a
the
statement.
best movie that's ever existed next to The Dark Knight, both Christopher Nolan. Okay, I'm done.
Well, you know what's better is what's real, and there's some robots that are on Mars right now. They talk about the how much time and money they spent to get there, and you know when they tabulated it all up after mission extensions, they at 25 years it took to develop, you know, and then operational time on the surface, you know, over $1 billion for this mission, which is, it's a great way to spend money because, you know, someday, you know, humanity needs to leave the planet and Earth and
because
start.
you know we're killing Earth quick enough that you know.
Well, and you know that's another story for a documentary. Climate change.
James has been pushing the environmental documentary, so I'm sure here soon we'll be starting to get into some of those ones. Yeah. All right. At this point, I'm going to give a fairly broad synopsis. I had a lot of fun writing the notes for this. Most of this comes from my own just notes as I was watching the documentary, but I also did use an NPR movie review column, a guy named Bob Mondello. So I used some of his stuff in this as well. So those are my sources. When we first see Oppy in this doc, she had been on a roll and abruptly comes to a stop. I really liked how they introduced Oppy. She comes to a stop and she says, "Hazard detected." In this really cute little way, they pop up these, you know, that like Oppy's talking to her controllers. And she alerts her handlers on Earth and they get a message. And I believe it said it took about 6 minutes to get from Oppy to Earth and then back. They look at the image she sent, this hazard, and they say, "Go ahead, you're safe to proceed. You're just looking at your shadow," which was super cute because that right there like embodies the what's the word? What's the word when something is not alive but it's given life?
That's
Our
above my
listeners
realm
out there
of
are going,
Artificial
"Nice."
intelligence?
No, there's a word.
Necromancy?
Yeah, there it is. Necromancy, you creep.
Yeah.
Anyway, it gave this inanimate object life, and we get into a little bit more about how they did that and almost purposefully did that in some ways. The quirky, kind of lovable relationship between Spirit, Opportunity, and the handlers. I was immediately invested in this. I just thought that was really cool. In 2003, NASA sent 2 robots, as I said, Spirit and Opportunity, to explore the surface of Mars. These are solar-powered and semi-autonomous rovers were expected to have a lifespan of 90 sols. So a sol is a day on Mars, which I believe, if I got this right, it's 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth. So everybody at NASA was going by sols, which over time would start making it to where their days were starting at midnight or starting at 4 a.m, just because it would keep kind of offsetting itself, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. But as chronicled with invention and enormous charm in Amazon's documentary Good Night Oppy, they continued sending back data and pictures for years. One of the mission managers, Steve Squires, said early on in the film, to say it's like a child being born would be to trivialize parenthood, but it sort of feels like that. I can get that because I know that, like I said earlier, when you build something, when you work on something, when you create something, you take pride in it. The same, maybe in a smaller wavelength, but it's the same kind of thing. Oppy and her twin sister Spirit look like real life Wallies. They each have solar paneled wings to provide power, metal arms to pick stuff up, and a head that swivels with lenses spaced just like a person's eyes. They stand at 5 foot 2 inches tall, which is the average height of a human being on Earth. And every morning, NASA scientists rouse them from an overnight slumber, just as they did their human counterparts on manned space flights. Matt, how did you feel about the wake-up songs?
Oh, the wake up songs are cute. I mean, that's the best way to start your day, especially when you get to go check on your children. You know, and that's exactly how those engineers felt. You know, they spent all their time on those robots, and you know they're like their babies. So
one thing that kind of stood out to me, I really enjoyed how when they built these rovers, they built them identical to each other. But these scientists were talking about how even though they were built identical, they immediately started to gain their own personalities. And I get it. This is kind of a way to
personalize them.
Yeah, to personalize them and to build up a fun story for a doc. But it worked. You know, they were talking about how Spirit was always the troublesome one. She was always giving them problems. They were running all kinds of things. And they called Opportunity Little Miss Perfect. Things just went well for her, which I thought was fun. The story of how they were conceived, designed, tested, and sent to Mars fills the first half of Good Night Oppy, and it's a suspense-filled ride crammed with brainstorming, troubleshooting, deadline pushing, and frequent nail-biting. Tight scheduling meant engineers needed to invent solutions on the fly when, say, balloons meant to cushion the rover's landing burst on impact during some of the tests. Matt, talk to us about the deadlines, the timelines. Why was it so important that they had to meet these windows?
Well, because in our orbit around the sun, you know, we have to kind of do it at the right time when Mars and Earth are at their closest to each other. And the way satellites and rovers are, they use the Earth's propulsion to speed up and gain, you know, galactic speed per se. I'm not sure of the unit of measurement for speed in space. Astronomical units.
Light years?
No, nothing we have travels at light years yet. But
for us.
Yeah, for us. Yeah, no.
Yeah, like,
No.
Like it's like knots in at sea.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
what is it in space?
One
of these
I'm
days
just
we'll
going to Google it.
astronomical units, I think.
I'm just going to Google it.
Good,
It's how
good
fast
idea,
the
Katy.
rockets go.
Space knots.
Yeah, space knots.
Space
Ooh.
nuggets.
It sounds like knots that you get at the mall. Like I want
Oh,
to.
like garlic knots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not
if
hungry
you
at all.
if you go too early, you know you're gonna come up short on making it there, and you know then
That
you
was
just,
wild to me. So they put like a graphic on that showed like the trajectory, and it doesn't come back around for another like 26 months. So if you miss your window, you have to wait 2 more years before you can launch again. That doesn't always click to me when we talk about space flight and everything. Like,
and that same rule applies to travelers to the International Space Station,
Right.
And you know you have to launch at just the right time in order to catch up to those.
According to Google, they are still doing it in miles per hour. We have not left
no
that.
kidding.
Yes, 17,000 miles per hour. And as we all know, since we watch space documentaries, once you get to space, there's no friction.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already got the propulsion, so they can continue to go at that speed, which is why you were talking about that the Earth and Mars need to be in alignment when they send it, so it has the least amount of distance.
Yep.
Oh, because
Yeah.
they can just keep on going.
Yeah.
No additional propulsion needed. And that's why it's not coming back.
Right. At least not on its own.
I was a bit confused, Brice, in all of your experience with parachutes and,
Say what?
yeah, I know you have some incredible information about parachutes and how those things work. I'm confused about why they would have had so many issues with the parachutes in this, because it's not like we're new to dropping heavy things out of high places, whether we're dropping
Are you talking about Operation Dumbo Drop?
Damn you, Katy. That was totally my joke. I was going to Operation Dumbo Drop.
We can do it again. Let's cut it out and start over.
No,
Terrific
we're
film.
keeping this. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? It was just something that kind of struck me as strange. They were having like time after time, they were shredding their parachutes, and I'm going, we drop tanks out of airplanes and they're fine in World War whatever. I'm not like a history major or anything, but thoughts? Anyone? Brice, I should disclaimer, I don't know that Brice knows anything about parachute
Oh,
building,
okay. That
but-
wasn't confusing.
I know very little. I know that grocery bags don't work as parachutes.
Please tell me that's from experience.
It may be.
How else did he get the way he is?
That's true.
That's true.
You find out things along the way.
Anyway.
But when he said that parachute that just completely shredded, that was the one we were going to send to Mars.
Yeah.
I felt really bad on that one.
Yeah. Well, that was the one we were going to do, and now it's gone.
That's a setback.
And the same thing when they were talking about building, like the whole part of the doc where they were talking about building these robots. I'm going to make myself sound really dumb right now, because I'm listening and I'm watching and I'm going, these guys are going through so much trouble making this robot just move. And I'm going, I've watched TV shows where people have robots fighting each other like without any problem. These kids are building them. And then I remembered when they started developing this technology, it was a long time before now. And that was quite a bit before then. So there's those, technology has come a long way.
Yep, and you got to remember too, when they developed these rovers, there was a certain element of artificial intelligence, because like when they saw its shadow, they have to be able to recognize those obstacles too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got to travel but that's because they have to process so many images as they travel.
All right. So after all of that, it was 7 months, 300 miles later, the two rovers finally get to the red planet. And that's where
Wait, how many miles did you
Not
just say?
300 miles.
300 million miles. Did
There we
I
go.
say 300 miles?
Oh,
You
you
said-
did, yeah.
Oh, that's not that far.
That's halfway across Nebraska.
Yeah. 300 million miles later.
Be on top of us.
Yeah, the red planet. The fun really kind of begins when they get up there. And this is where, again, it just kind of keeps feeling more and more like a Pixar movie, in my opinion. The filmmakers have plenty of footage of NASA folks cheering, fretting, most of all explaining. The director also employed a digital wizards from Industrial Light and Magic to conjure the scenes on Mars that the crew can't shoot. I loved the first 90 days of their trip when they were just kind of going full bore. Everyone was real excited about it. They were thinking, we got to get as much productivity out of these rovers as we can before they start to break down and they start to become covered in dust and lose power and all that good stuff. They kind of gave the rovers their own personalities with the kind of quirkiness that would pop up on the screens, where they'd go, oh, I found lava rocks. Oh, I found more lava rocks and even more lava rocks and more lava rocks. So again, that added to the kind of Pixar-esque nature of that film. I don't think that they could have written a better story by the way that they landed on Mars. They landed in two different areas, one being more of a vacation style. They were saying it's like kind of the best weather they could have asked for. That was where Opportunity or Oppy landed. And then Spirit ending up in the winter where it was much rougher terrain. Kind of writes itself. You've got these two twins that show up to the planet. They're in completely different terrains. and they have to overcome all these challenges up on Mars.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is when they're entering the atmosphere of Mars. They call it the 7 minutes of terror, is what what they call it. Yeah, yeah.
And it would be terror.
What kind of
It
things
would.
went on in the 7 minutes of terror?
Well, there was a loss of signal because of the high heat that was produced from the friction entering Mars's atmosphere, and then the uncertainty of how all of that would play together as far as landing, because they didn't know what they were going to land on, which is why they created the inflatable balloons around it, so that way if it did hit something big, they could bounce off whatever it was and hopefully end up upright.
I can't imagine many things more terrifying than knowing that there's 7 minutes where you're not going to have a connection on something that's millions of miles away. You have no way of contacting it, no way of fixing or helping it, and you literally just have to wait 7 minutes in hell, just waiting. I can't imagine.
For it to potentially all go up in smoke.
Yeah.
That you spent
Well,
20
and it
years
almost
on.
did with Spirit.
Right.
It saw it bouncing. It picked up the signal and it was bouncing. They could see that, but when it landed, it didn't land in a way that allowed the signal to transmit back to Earth. So they weren't sure for a short period of time.
Oh, that's scary.
Yep.
I really loved, Matt kind of alluded to earlier, the wake up songs. Brice, did you didn't think any of this was cool? The wake up songs?
I actually really enjoyed the wake up songs.
They integrated it well into the film, I thought, too.
Yeah, because it wasn't just waking up the robots; it was also waking up the crew that was also on Mars Hours.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, getting them pumped up. I wrote down a couple of the songs that they played. The first one they played was "Born to Be Wild" by Steppenwolf.
Oh, that's
that's fun.
cute.
"Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles. "Rome" by the B-52s. The heart-wrenching "SOS" by ABBA when they were waiting to get the signal back from their children up there. "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves. And, of course, "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go" by...
Before you go. Wait, no. I know it. Nope, I don't have it.
is it Marilyn Manson?
yeah.
Too soon.
It's by Wham!
Oh, they had the
Whammy.
hair that was like...
Yeah, I think so. Did
Well,
Opportunity and Spirit actually have little speakers on them? Like, if you were standing on Mars, could you hear the song? Or was it just
they
in
did
the...
have speakers.
They did, yeah.
They did.
That's
Yeah, because
kinda crazy.
they needed to be able to measure how sound waves traveled on Mars.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, they seriously did.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, is this just something that the crew's hearing, and it's like an internal thing that Oppy's hearing? And I thought, so someone had to go in there and actually install speakers onto that thing. I got me wondering, of course, because I'm a dork. I'm like, well, maybe
I
there's
think
like,
we've established we all are.
yeah, a little bit. There's little green Martians behind rocks that are like, oh, here comes Oppy. I can hear this stupid song. Like, make sure you stay just out
What's
of
this weird music?
reach. In true movie fashion, the light and carefree time of the first 90 days can only last for so long before conflict is needed to make a truly compelling story. Increase the drama, put viewers on the edge of their seats, or in this case, potentially jeopardize the mission completely. The first major conflict being the solar flares on the flight in, but the next nail biter was when Spirit came across a little pyramid-like rock that they named Adirondack.
That's a good word.
Yeah. It looked like this little pyramid, and as soon as Spirit reached down and touched it, she lost all communication with Earth.
That's very dramatic.
Yeah. It was so sad. Everyone was holding their breath. And I know it sounds dumb. Probably James is sitting over there going, this sounds so stupid. But when you watch this, the way that they play the music, the way that they build this thing up.
The way Angela Bassett says it. Yes, your queen. Angela Bassett. Yep.
if you can't hear James, he just went,
Oh yeah.
Your queen.
So what the hell was the Adirondack rock that made it turn off? That had to be something alien, right?
So the Adirondack Rock was I mean it was just coincidence really. It was
Bullshit.
So
Matt has the answers. I believe
right.
in
So
Matt.
so I used to work for the government, so I can say this.
So
I
did
was a mailman.
Secret government.
But that gives me some credibility.
Well, we all know the post office has all the government secrets.
That's true.
Well, if you've seen Men in Black, you know that the post
Shoot.
office hides aliens.
This is
And
true.
that's-
In the mailbox.
That's another one of my favorite documentaries.
Yeah, true.
And on next week's
Oh,
show,
Brice.
So that was when they introduced ABBA's SOS, when they were waiting for Spirit to call home. I was feeling myself get a little choked up during this part, even though I kind of knew how it was going to end. Then they gave a command that I feel like everybody in the world should probably have access to for their own sake. And it was an actual command that NASA sent that they programmed into the programming that's called "Shut Down, Damn It." So "Shut Down, Damn It" command that they sent to Spirit. Lo and behold, Spirit wakes up and starts talking to home again, ready to continue exploring, like the good little soldier that she is. The rovers, for the first 90 days, racing against time as scientists assume again that their solar panels are going to get dusty. Then the next big problem, whatever, were things that looked like trouble, but maybe weren't trouble. Brice, talk to me about the sand tornadoes.
Yes, the sand tornadoes, or the sand space tornadoes, the Dust Devils, the Mars Dust Devils, my favorite sports team.
The Mars Dust Devils.
Yeah, they saw those coming and they were scared. And then
What were they?
they were free robot washes.
The robot car.
Because they actually clean the solar panels.
Yeah.
and,
Nothing washes it like sand.
for those that are interested, there's actually video footage from the rovers that exists on NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory's website that show these dust devils. JPL. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Brice so eloquently pointed out, there was these giant sand tornadoes that everyone's looking at these cameras going, oh my God, this is the end of our mission. This is going to completely destroy our rovers. I could be wrong, but I think they actually lose contact with the rovers for a little bit during these tornadoes. But then as soon as the tornadoes end up blowing over these rovers, they check the panels and they cleaned them. They were as clean as the day they came off the manufacturing floor, which was pretty crazy. So I'm pretty sure I was like, yeah, sitting in my living room, cheering for these little rovers. And when I saw those nice clean solar panels, again, in my head, it's a Pixar movie, and I'm seeing this little scared robot shaking and going, oh my God, here it comes. And then it gets whipped around, and then as soon as it takes off and it's all clean, it like looks back in the tornado with these big eyes and kind of looks like a stoner and goes, you're welcome, little buddy, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, a new lease on life. Both rovers make it past the first 90 sols, and the rovers spend years exploring terrain NASA never expected them to see. They found evidence of water,
Yep.
which was too acidic at first to have been suitable for life. They compared it to battery acid. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Then Oppy comes across a crater with walls steeper than she has ever gone down. Lots of planning. They go into what kind of things they did. They had to rebuild, like conditions in a lab, trying to kind of make a plan for how are we going to get down there, because the lower in the crater they went, the more bedrock they'd find, the more they'd be able to see what happened in previous years and decades and centuries and however long Mars has been around.
Millions of years.
Yeah. And then, as we should have expected, they take Oppy into that crater and she starts to slide, heading towards another big conflict where she can't stop. But as Matt said earlier, they built in this little piece of autonomy into the rovers, and Oppy, not her handlers, Oppy's artificial intelligence clicks in and saves Oppy from rolling into this giant boulder and to everybody's surprise. So once again, she saves herself. Round of applause for Opportunity. Over time, it kind of makes sense to me that the scientists and engineers view their charges or their creations as almost human. They started talking about things like arthritic joints when it was just a stuck joint. They would call it arthritic. Technician was giving birth to twins at the same time that they were having Opportunity and Spirit. So she was kind of comparing those things as things went on and dementia started setting in Opportunity with losing her memory and things. There was another scientist dealing with the dementia setting in her own grandmother, and they were kind of talking about those similarities. From there, they take Oppy and they say, "We're not done with you yet." And they start pushing her toward another crater in hopes of getting a good look at the rocks in that one. This one's even bigger than the last one. They push her that way, and then they do a thing they called blindfold driving. Matt, talk about blindfold driving and why they thought that was a good idea for Oppy.
Blindfold driving. Oh,
do you recall that?
So yeah. Blindfold driving is where they set a course for the rover, and it uses its intelligence to drive as far as it can before the winter months. And it basically means that without assistance from people on Earth, it allows itself to make its own choices and progress further towards the goal, which was endurance. The crater was endurance. Do you remember the first crater's name? Victoria. Victoria crater.
Apparently you do.
I do.
I'd like to note the smug look on Matt's face right now. He's very happy, and we're all happy for him. He is very knowledgeable on this topic. He was very happy about it. We love hearing all about it from him.
Yeah,
he's very knowledgeable.
I'm a nerd.
So they turn. Yeah, so they put a blindfold on Oppy to kind of take away some of the built-in problems they could have and say, just trust us, just drive. So she does that. Then they take off her blindfold days or weeks or however long later and realize she's been spinning her tires the whole time. She hasn't gone very far. She's stuck. She's
buried. She
took her big, creepy black van and parked it right on a hill on the ice and spinning tires. Brice.
We know somebody like that.
I have some experience with this. What you want to do is get out of your van, just take your axe, which you have handy with you, and just start chipping away
naturally
at the ice.
In the creepy black van.
Yeah.
And then hand out candy.
And then if you can't find out whose Jeep it is, just go ahead and go door to door after you've already got out of your creepy van with your axe and.
You use the axe to knock on the door? No?
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
And then you peek your head through and say, "Here's Johnny."
Yep, there you go. Yep. But just as Brice had to do with his stuck van, Oppy did pretty much the same thing, which was the old thing that every Nebraskan winter driver knows, the old forward and back routine.
Forward and back,
Keep going forward and back until you can get yourself out of there. Yep. And it worked. She kept on exploring. Through all of this, Spirit broke a wheel. She had to drive backwards, similar to pulling a shopping cart as opposed to pushing it. There were dust storms that had become a problem. They had to endure winters that they mentioned were much longer and colder than Earth's winters. Then, in 2011, Spirit got stuck. She already had the one broken wheel. When she got embedded and stuck, she broke the other wheel, and winter was on its way.
Couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, people on Earth started a campaign called Free Spirit because they wanted to, kind of send their good vibes out into the universe and say, hey, help get little Spirit free. They decided to put Spirit to sleep for the winter. They shut her down. They said, we're going to try after the winter to talk to her again. They hoped she would wake back up. Unfortunately, on May 25th, 2011, her journey had ended. She did not wake up again, and she was gone. And Opportunity,
am I so sad?
I know, Opportunity was now an only child. R.I.P. Spirit. Well done, little girl. With
7
Oppy
years.
getting older and arthritic, the question was raised, what's next? They decide to push towards the next big crater. There's an even bigger one that's even deeper, and they're hoping that they're going to get even more information, and they're figuring, you know what? Opportunity's still hanging on. we have no other choice but to keep pushing her and keep seeing how far she'll go. They go there. At this point, they're 5 years into the mission, well over what they expected. It's going to take several years to get Oppy to this huge crater. 6 years go by, and Oppy becomes a little meteorite finder. She keeps finding these meteorites, sending a whole bunch of information back to Earth. It's kind of fun. 7 years in, she's 2 kilometers away from the Endeavour crater, is what they were calling it. They start to talk about how Oppy's beginning to feel her age. Her arm is causing her trouble. They have to keep her arm extended because it was so broken. They were afraid that it would get stuck in a position that couldn't be used. So they pushed it all the way out and said, this is where it's going to stay. You're going to travel with your arm straight out. She started having memory trouble, wheel trouble. They ended up having to force the poor girl to stay awake because she was forgetting everything she had done if she was allowed to sleep. Finally, 9 years into the mission, Oppy reached the Endeavour crater, the little engine that could. She spent the next 7 years exploring that crater. Slowly, but surely, she explored that crater. Brice, what did she find in that crater? Do you recall?
I want to say rocks, or actually a sign of water that was not like battery acid.
Exactly. Yep. She got in there and discovered that Mars was, in fact, wet at one point. So, with that being said, I don't know what all that tells the scientists because I'm not a scientist, but I know that's a big part of what they were looking for. There could have been life on Mars at one point.
And we've seen evidence from satellites that are orbiting Mars right now that have recent water flows as early as 10 years ago. So I mean, this has been documented because you can see the before and after of these water flows. So I mean, it still exists, but it has to be the right conditions for it to exist.
And don't they theorize that they have ice caps?
Yeah. So the southern and northern poles, they are ice capped. We actually have a mission going to the South Pole right now. So we're gonna find out some more.
Is the ice water, or is it possibly a different
most
chemical?
of it's carbon dioxide,
Okay.
frozen water, ice, and carbon dioxide.
So around Sol 5000, Oppy really isn't feeling well anymore. They decide to do they figure that she only has a little bit of energy left. So it becomes kind of a battle between the engineers and the scientists, where the engineers are saying, we want to see Oppy. We want to see what she looks like on Mars. We know what she looked like 15 years ago, but we want to see her now. And the scientists said, no, any energy that she has left, we need to use that to continue exploring. And said, we've done 14 more years worth of exploring than what she was intended to do. Give us this one. And so they said, yeah, we'll give you this one. So they used a whole bunch of her energy to create a whole bunch of little tiny thumbnails, little blurry thumbnails that were then pieced together like a puzzle to do a selfie on Mars. They had Oppy take her own selfie. And for some reason, I thought that was really cool.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, it was really cute to see. As one final little conflict for Oppy, as she's old, she just take her first selfie. It's like a grandma taking a selfie, and it's all blurry and probably off-centered, but it's still fun. One final conflict, a giant dust storm to end all dust storms is heading her way. The graphics show Oppy's little journal. It was kind of funny. I don't know if that was a real thing. I think it might have been just made for the documentary to kind of ham up the cinematics. Yeah, but they kind of gave her own journal, like she was journaling all along. And she says, my batteries are low and it's getting dark. And then we lose contact with Oppy.
Stop it.
60 souls go by.
What are souls?
A day on Mars.
Oh, okay.
40 minutes longer than our days. Then 100. Then 6 months pass, and finally the dust clears. The giant dust storm is all but gone, but still no word from our brave little robot. One last attempt is made to try to talk to Oppy in February of 2019. And they play one final wake-up song. They play Billie Holiday's I'll Be Seeing You.
Stop it.
The room is silent. No eyes are dry. And on 5,352 souls, which is 15 years, the mission has ended for Opportunity. Good night, Oppy.
Bravo.
Stop it.
In July of 2020, Spirit and Opportunity's granddaughter, Perseverance, began preparations for her trip to Mars to pick up where her brave predecessors left off. And for me, I hope that one day one of the future rovers comes across our brave little Oppy and Spirit, and we get to see them again. Little proud statues sitting on Mars. Still quiet, but proud.
Someday they'll be part of the first museum.
That's
on
what I was
Mars.
thinking. They can be statues in the first museum
Yeah.
will.
on Mars of our rovers. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I don't know about you guys. Actually, I do know, but I fucking loved this documentary.
Yeah.
It read to me like I said 1,000 times, something right out of the vault of Disney. I'm surprised. I know I did see that there's a children's book called Good Night Oppy that follows this. And I think I haven't looked at it, but I think that's a pretty cool idea.
I think there's something innately human in wanting to know what we don't know, to find what's out there, and then to humanize it, to personalize it with something so much that you give it a name and then follow its journey and know that everyone is counting on you. Everyone wants to hear from you. And then after you put all your hopes and dreams on it, for it to go so far above what you would have hoped for, to find so much more than you could have imagined.
Yep.
And then to, as a team, as a whole, as a nation, to watch it slowly shut down and know you're not going to hear from it anymore. You're letting go. And it's hard.
Yep.
You're just letting it go together, but you get to know that someday there will be another.
Yeah, something about the like humanity-wide collective rooting for something, and that's kind of part of the with the exception of things like the space race and where there's a competition to get, into space and all that. That's kind of the fun of space exploration, I think, is it's one of the few things that everyone kind of thinks, this is cool. This is, we're maybe a little bit of a unifying factor. You've got in the International Space Station, you've got,
People
cosmonauts
from all over the world
and Americans and that are kind of working together to do something. It's sort of a bit of a unifying thing, which is kind of fun. Standout moments. Brice, I know you hated this documentary with all your heart for no reason. But why don't you tell us, there's got to be something in here that you liked, that you didn't think was absolute garbage.
Okay, so I didn't hate it. I just everything it chose to be. I
despised.
No.
Yeah.
No. I really, what caught me on a personal level was when they were all excited, and in these groups there was always somebody with like a jar of peanuts.
Oh, the peanuts.
Yeah, they had a
that's
tradition in which they would just eat peanuts.
That's a NASA-wide
Is
tradition. It is a NASA-wide
I was going to
tradition.
ask about that. And even Nikki, when we were watching, she's like, what the fuck is up with these peanuts?
Anytime there's a pivotal moment in a mission, peanuts.
Why?
It's just tradition.
But why?
must have started in the 50s.
Yeah, well, one of the older missions.
But why?
But why, Jeff?
There was a guy with some peanuts, and everybody liked the peanuts, so everybody had some peanuts because it made them happy.
Mr. Peanut was on the first spaceship.
Is that a question or a statement?
That's a joke.
Oh,
Yeah.
the first.
I was very confident, but no.
Yeah,
But I also liked how Steve Squires, the project principal scientist, voted year after year that both rovers would be dead the next year at their annual cocktail party.
Yep.
And he lost so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he knew someday he was going to win.
Yeah.
If they keep doing this, someday I'm going to be the winner. It might be 15 years down the road, but I'm going to win.
Yeah, he figured he would win at some point.
Yeah.
And at a time he'd be sad, that would be one thing to cheer him up.
Yeah. I won this, but my multi-billion-dollar creations are now
Also,
sitting.
it's the documentary I've seen with the most tucked-in shirts.
Oh, for sure.
That was just another thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, those are the things Brice looks for in documentaries. How many shirts are tucked in?
Belt buckle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie, just based on our conversations, do you have something here that,
I do.
that touched
I
your
love the
warm
wake
little
up
heart?
song. I think you take something that's incredibly scientific and make it human. It's a rover. It's a piece of machinery, but it has all of our hopes and dreams. Everything we've ever wanted to know, everything we grow up as a kid and want to know about what's out there. And every morning they took it and played a song to wake up their rover, who was essentially a part of their family, and woke up the engineering team at the same time. That's so wonderful. That's so sweet. I mean, it could just be a scientific project, but it's so much more than that. And I think that just speaks a lot to what NASA is. I think now we have privatized space, which I do not support, but I know why they do it, for the money. But NASA stands for exploration and not money. It's about doing it for the knowledge and no other reason, not casinos on the moon.
NASA just takes too long because they're using taxpayer money. So you have private space companies that can funnel as much money as they want into it, and they can blow up rockets and just have 6 more in the waiting line.
And send William Shatner's ass to space.
Oh, they did.
So the point is, the songs are cute.
Yeah, they were. They did a good job then too of weaving those into the documentary as well, and kind of using that as, in certain points, the sort of the backing music to the portion of the documentary that was in there. So I thought that was fun.
And Angela Bassett.
And Angela Bassett all day. Matt, standout moment.
The standout moment was exactly like what you talked about, how everybody was so captivated by the story of these rovers. And when you think back to when they were launched, it was 2003. Smartphones were really just becoming a thing. And, and the news of these hit everybody's hand. And it was just it was something that captivated the entire planet. And it was one thing to bring people together. And as humans advance into the cosmos, I think we'll find more of that.
All right, so now we've got to rate our documentary. Thank you guys for talking about that with me. Brice, man, you got to learn to put a lid on it at these shows.
I can't help it sometimes.
So every week we give our documentary an official, quote unquote, official documentary rating. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being an absolute piece of shit and 10 being on par with the best documentary they've ever seen. The item that is used for scoring changes each week depending on the context of the documentary. And this week we will be using sand tornado car washes as our rating item. So, Matt, how many sand tornado car washes are you giving Good Night Oppy?
I gave it all 10.
You gave it all 10.
Yeah, I love this. I love
the best thing you've ever seen.
Ever.
I've never seen a better documentary than this.
Yeah, ever. I've never seen one. Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Good luck finding one that's better than Good Night Oppy, everybody.
I don't need to watch anymore because this is the best one ever.
I quit.
Done. Going home.
Matt just walked out of the room. Brice, I know that this was your least favorite thing you've ever watched in your whole life, but give it a sand tornado car wash. How many?
It wasn't the least favorite thing I've ever watched.
What is your least favorite thing you've ever watched?
There's this movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Bullshit. That is not going to be the worst movie you've ever watched.
Is it Munich?
Capote.
Oh, Capote, yeah.
And I watched it as a high schooler, and it was a really long.
It was the one he was making when he died.
Was that the one? Well, he was doing lots of black tar heroin at the time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Don't do black tar heroin.
It's got tar in the name.
I gave this 6 sand tornado car washes.
Okay. 6 sand tornado car washes from Bruce Zeus and the Goose is Loose. Katy.
Hi, Jeff.
How many sand tornado
So having
car
seen
washes?
only bits of it, but being a big fan of space, I'm going to go with 8.
8.
Yep.
Very good. I give this a 9. I really enjoyed it. It's going to be hard during the run of our show for me to want to give anything a 10, only because it's going to be hard for me to want to say this is the best thing I've ever seen. Maybe I'm a little bit more, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So 9. So that gives us an 8, a 10, a 6, and a 9, which for those of you out here doing
The math for some
and
reason.
averaging, that is at 8.25 Sand Tornado car washes from Talkumentary to Good Night Oppy. Friends, strangers, listeners, I want to thank you all for hanging out and talking about this doc with me today. I'm looking forward to checking out what comes next. And with that, let's talk about what is next. For next week, crew member Catherine, who you have not met yet, but she's sitting right over there. She has chosen the documentary called Pray Away. That's a 101-minute documentary that follows the former leaders of a Pray the Gay Away movement as they contend with the aftermath of their actions. Anyone in the room seen Pray Away yet?
Oh my God. I was made for this documentary.
Predictions for, or not predictions, you've seen it. Enjoyed it?
It was horrifying, and I loved every minute of it.
Brice, you seen it? Matt, you seen it?
I've never seen it.
No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, you better watch it.
Hey, you better watch it.
You better watch out, man. So anyone listening, go out, please, and watch the documentary Pray Away. It can be streamed on Netflix. We will be talking about it next week with Katy's coming back, ladies and
I'll
gentlemen.
be here.
She's been on every episode. She might as well host this thing.
Hells yeah.
Catherine's going to be here. King James will be here. We are going to continue our quest to pray away all the things we can't change about ourselves, one documentary at a time. On behalf
Excellent.
of DJ, since he's not here, Molly, please feel better.
Oh, we love
Katy, Brice, Matt, and the entire documentary family. I am your host, Jeff Kolaski, and I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. Bye.